What's going on, guys? This is Al B, and today we're going to be talking about a question that I get very often, especially from newer music producers and artists, but also I get this question or this conversation from more seasoned and experienced producers and artists as well. And that is, how do you find your sound? Or how do you continue to evolve and mature your own sound? We're going to talk about my 5 top tips on how to find your sound right now. Without further ado, this is Al B. Let's get into it.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. So I know it's been a minute, new year, new ideas. We're going to talk about how to find your sound and how to keep it moving forward. The first and most important thing for me personally is to explore and experiment. Now, that's going to sound cliche, but it also cannot be overstated, guys. If you're looking to hone in your sound and what your style is, you have to try different things, not just to find what you like, but almost more importantly, find what you do not like. And that's how you kind of start to find your own style and what fits into the pocket or vibe that you're going for. And that doesn't mean that every track you make is going to fit into that vibe or that sound, but it gives you more tools, it gives you more resources on how to shape and go for what it is you're going for that particular track or album or whatever it is that you're creating. You can try different genres. So if you typically make trap beats, try making Afro beat. If you typically make pop, try making some country. I mean, country's getting real, real hip hoppy, if you will, you know what I'm saying? So try different genres and see how you can incorporate that into what you make. And that can also help you kind of find what your sound is and what you like to create. If you always start with the melody, why don't you try starting with the drums? I guarantee you it'll give you a different bounce and it'll give you a different approach that you can use whenever you feel like you want to switch it up. The number 2 tip is going to be learn from your influences. So whatever it is that you find yourself humming or singing around the crib, or you keep repeating when you're in the car or when you're working out in the gym, my favorite, whatever it is that influences you and you like, listen to it, study it, try to understand what is it about this track that I like? What is it about this album that really speaks to me or that has it stuck in my head? Or what is it about this artist and the way they deliver their flows that really make me go around the house rapping their whole song word for word, bar for bar? What is it in this influence that I'm drawn to, and how can I incorporate that into my style, into my music? Now, that's not to say go be a copycat and do exactly what you heard and try to mimic that person, but we all are combinations of our past and of our experiences. And so sometimes it's okay to specifically go seek out those different experiences, specifically meditate and think on those things that you enjoy and why, and try to use that to incorporate it into what you're doing and into how you create music. And this may even get down to specifically reverse engineering a song. So you can drop a track that you really like right in the top of your DAW, and then underneath it you start to try to mimic it, right? And again, this isn't to copycat or to mimic, it's to learn what it is that you like. It's kind of like studying. You're studying the things that influence you and why you like them, and then you learn what pieces you can take from that and what pieces you might choose to leave. Now, my 3rd tip is to develop your sound palette. Now, how do you do that exactly? Create unique sounds. And the way to do that is through working through a little bit of sound design. Now, you don't have to completely nerd out and go super deep into sound design, but you can choose some presets that sound okay. Maybe you don't love them, and start to adjust some of those parameters, whether that be with a virtual synthesizer or an analog synthesizer, and getting a better feel for what you really like and maybe even why you like it as you start to learn. This ties back to my first tip of exploring and experimenting. Do that specifically with sound design. And you can do this in one big session where you're simply just creating your own custom sounds. Again, whether that's in your favorite plugin and you're saving those to come back to later and actually create tracks with, and then maybe you'll have something that feels more like an original sound of yours versus you just had to go find and download a good preset pack from somebody else. You design these on your own, and that gives you much more of a feeling of fulfillment, and you actually are developing your own sound, quite literally. Another way to develop your sound palette is to actually limit your tools. So instead of just opening up all the different plugins you have or just choosing whichever one you want that day, maybe you actually limit the tools that you use that kind of force you to go a little bit deeper with your tools and think through what you're trying to accomplish, instead of just kind of the randomization that comes with so many different plugins that have different styles and have different kind of vibes and different textures. And primarily, this allows you to focus more on the depth than it does on the breadth, and that's how you can develop your sound as well. And the third piece to developing your sound palette would be to layer different sounds and textures together, which is going to allow you to, kind of like I said in the first part of this tip, develop unique sounds, unique vibes, and unique textures. That's going to be how you can have your own unique sound. Now, the fourth tip that I would suggest people do to develop their own sound is going to be to build a workflow. Now, realistically, this isn't something you can do if you're really new to making music. It's something that more comes with time. And so you have to kind of learn this through repetition, and then you start to understand what you prefer as far as your workflow, what allows you to get the most done and focus on the creative aspects of making music and not get bogged down in the logical and more so technical pieces of making music. There's always going to be a place for that and a need for that, but while you're trying to develop or evolve your sound, you're going to want to, at some point, build a workflow that you can go back to so that at least some of those pieces are consistent. But within that workflow, within that consistent workflow, you have different things you may change up, which allow you to continue to develop and maybe find your sound, and you like doing things this way or that way. And that's going to allow you to dive deeper into the direction that you want to of developing and evolving your sound. Now, the fifth and probably most important tip here is to trust your instincts. This is going to be absolutely critical to developing your own sound, because for it to be yours, it has to be from you, of you, by you. And the only way you get to that point is by trusting what you feel and what you want to hear. And if it feels good to you, if it sounds good to you, then it is you, it's yours. That's one of the best parts of being creative. And not to get all philosophical, but I personally believe that creativity and being creative is our closest similarity to being gods, all right? The ability to imagine and create something from scratch, something that wasn't there before. So trust your instincts. What you like is what you like, and that's okay if the person in the room or the person you play it for doesn't necessarily like it. It's not going to be for everybody. Even the most famous artists, the top selling artists of all time, have a gang of people that don't necessarily care for their music. So you can't really get caught up in that. You have to do what is pleasing to you. You have to trust your own instincts, trust your own tastes, and that's how you're going to develop what works for you and what you feel like is you. But the hardest part about this tip is that it takes time. It takes time to even understand what you like and to be able to be comfortable with what you like and comfortable with other people maybe not liking it. It's always cool when somebody else does appreciate your music, for sure. That's one of the best feelings in the world as a creative of any sort. But it's super important here to really just know that you're the one that like it. Make music for yourself first, and then you find the audience and the listeners who will appreciate that part of you. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you found it helpful, guys. Drop a comment. Let me know what are some tips that you have for people that are trying to find their sound, and which one of these was your favorite tip. Until next time, guys, this is Al B, and we are out. Yes, sir.